You are listening to the Free to Be Mindful podcast, which invites you along on a journey to learn of mindful living, grow in mental health, and inspire through personal growth. In a world where we can often feel much stress and overwhelm, this podcast provides bite-sized tips and real talk conversations, empowering you to embrace mindfulness and nurture your full potential. I'm your host, Vanessa De Jesus Guzman, licensed therapist, retired educator, entrepreneur, and mom of two. I'm passionate about helping busy moms reduce the overwhelm and to live life intentionally without losing their, well, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Free to Be Mindful podcast. I hope that you're feeling good, looking good, and doing better in this world than you were yesterday. So I'm so excited for today's guest. And I know I probably say that a lot before our guest episodes, but today I am especially excited for three different reasons. The first is you hear me say in every introduction, I hope that you're feeling good and looking good. And I do believe that feeling good isn't just on the outside, it's most importantly on the inside. But those things, feeling good and looking good, do go hand in hand. The second reason is because I have probably had issues with this thing that we're going to talk about. I've made it a thing in my life since I was very young. So I'm excited to officially talk about it with you. And the third is because the guest just so happens to be my first cousin. Her name is Dr. Sasha De Jesus. She is a board certified weight management specialist and preventive cardiologist. Yes, very fancy. And she is the founder of Metabolic, which is a telehealth weight management practice serving patients in New York, New Jersey, and in Florida. She specializes in helping people achieve and maintain a healthy weight and a healthy metabolism through a holistic approach, which I love, that includes nutrition, behavior, physical activity, and FDA-approved medications that, to be honest with you, I can't pronounce. Her focus is on preserving muscle mass and fostering sustainable long-term changes. And I really am excited that we are talking about this today because most listeners out there are, of course, moms, and they're moms between 35 to 44. That's where the bulk of you fall. And I feel like after especially having babies and then entering, we hear about perimenopause and the menopause stage. I think it's so important to be educated on this, not just again to look good on the outside, but really to feel good so that we extend our lives and we can be present not only for ourselves, but for those who we love. And I love what she's about. She has extensive training on this topic, and there's so many fun things about her, which you'll hear about on the episode. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hello, Prima, and welcome to the Free to Be Mindful podcast. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, I love, once in a while, like I try to slip it in there when I'm like, yeah, I have three cousins who are doctors, and not only are they doctors, but they're fun and beautiful all together. So I love, love, love it. I'm so proud of all of you, and especially you, not only doctor status, but now with your business and everything. Super duper exciting. But before we get into all that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I'm blushing under the makeup, but thank you for such a warm intro. Well, as you all know, I'm Sasha De Jesus, and I'm Vanessa's cousin. I'm a Latina, of course, doctor. I was raised in the Dominican Republic, where I studied medicine, and after completing my studies, I moved here to New York. And I trained at Lenox Hill Hospital, where I did my residency and fellowship in internal medicine and then preventative cardiology, and then pursued further training in obesity medicine.
So you have such extensive training, but you do a lot of fun things on the side, like your chocolate. So please share with us about that.
Of course. Well, I love chocolate, and I always tell, everyone, not just my patients, but everyone, like, you should, keep doing what you love and having what you love. Just come up with healthier alternatives to, have your little treats here and there. And with that in mind, like I went back home a couple years ago, and like part of the family stuff is growing cacao. So I took a few beans from there and started, it was a trial and error. Thank you for being one of my guinea pigs in the beginning, trying my not so good at that time chocolate. But yes, I started like looking, YouTube videos, looking up how to make things, watching all this stuff, and I came up with like a like a dark chocolate that it's sweet but with like natural sweeteners and fruits that are rich in antioxidants, so making it healthier. And another thing that I love, as you know, is cooking in general, not just the
Yes.
chocolate. I actually finished a batch of sourdough bread. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram this morning,
Mm.
but
No, not this morning, but I'll have to
not yet.
check it out.
But yes, it's there. So yes, cooking, baking, having family over, hosting. That's pretty much, my what brings me joy. The beach, my baby Mimosa,
Yes.
who's sitting on my lap here as we chat. Very quiet, Yorkie. So yeah, that's pretty much, family, friends, and having a good time.
I'm glad that you mentioned Yorkie because I literally have my baby on my lap, not right now when I work from home, but mine is a human. Yours is a Yorkie whose name is Mimosa. She knows Ollie, right? I was looking at my Facebook stories, and just last year when I was taking care of her for a couple of days, where her and Ollie were like, "Listen, we're cousins, but from far away." They were not. Ollie was not a fan.
Little bully. She compensates her small size with a lot of personality.
A lot of personality. And that
Way too
is when
much.
it comes to baking and cooking, that's something that we do not have in common because I see it as a chore. It does not bring me joy, but I do love being your guinea pig. I mean, she's like, "Oh, taste this and tell me how this." I still have yet to taste the bread, I think. I don't think I've tasted it yet, but it's
Not yet.
really not yet, but it's really amazing. And what I love about you is that here you are, this amazing, beautiful professional, but then you keep it real on your social media. It's awesome tying it all together and then with the weight management and the holistic approach to it all. So I absolutely adore that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I try to, show pieces of my day to day. It's very informal, my post, as you've
Right.
seen. But just to show that you can integrate little by little parts of being healthier into your routine. Again, it's not about depriving your body, yourself, of having that little piece of bread, but hey, let's have the healthier option, and all those little things that it's about making sustainable lifestyle choices for me.
Yes. So let's get into that. Most of our listeners are moms between 35 and 44. And here we are either having kids or not having kids, but our bodies begin to change as we creep up to the 40s. So when you talk about sustainable things that we can do and the holistic approach, what does that even mean or look like?
Right. So when I first about the sustainable changes, I talk from example. I don't try to be talking from like my high horse or anything. The contrary, and I tell patients about making small changes that you can integrate in your day to day, and they can be there in the long term. And I tell them, like, I tried that myself when I was like training, doing preventative cardiology, and I started going down that rabbit hole of nutrition and what's best for my body. I went plant-based overnight. And
Mm.
and that was me going from, how we grew up, like with our meat, like 6 days a week, whatever, 7 days a week. I was having steak like 5 days a week and all that stuff. And I went plant-based like overnight.
Wow.
Like a week later, I was itching. It was like, this is crazy. I was like,
Your body was
and
like,
then
stop.
like, what are you doing with all these like beans, legumes that you didn't regularly have, and where's the meat? So I was like, okay, how can you pretend to be doing that when you know it's not the right way to do that? And I started, okay, let's have my meat again, little by little. I started cutting back. Okay, the red meat, having less, like 2 times a week. And nowadays, I would have it if we go to a restaurant, or if someone is like having that at in their house. There's no way I can tell Papi like, hey, I'm not gonna have meat. Like
You would flip out.
yes. He'll be like, you're not my daughter. So I make those, things like more as a treat now and then, and at home have more of that clean diet that again, it took me a good time, like at least a year and a half to like fully get to this point. Not that 24 hours that I try to do. So that's what I mean by making sustainable changes. Like little by little, you don't feel it as much. It's not so much of a headache. You're not thinking, you're
Mm.
not thinking so much of what you're going to be doing. It's like, okay, let's integrate more lentils. And then, okay, you explore a few recipes and then let's bring another bean or legume, whatever, little by little. And then when it comes to the holistic approach to wellness and weight management, which is pretty much what I focus on the practice, like weight management and metabolic health, it's focusing on different pillars. Like how many times people have been trying to do diet and exercise, it doesn't work, or just focusing on the just dieting and staying at home, or you have to like even if it's little by little, even if it's just like
Mhm.
walking 5 minutes, do a little bit of movement. So the movement, the nutrition, the behavior, that's you're the expert there, like managing sleep. That's so important. Like
Mhm.
you don't want to see me when I'm like sleep deprived, like I'm not my bubbly self, and that affects our everyone's in different levels, like from our mood, our hunger, all those different things. So sleep, stress management, emotional eating, all those things. And then the fourth, pillar, that would be medication for those that need it for weight management. Because again, I don't approach weight management like, hey, I mean, if that's your goal, like go have your summer body. Who am I to tell
Mm.
you no? But also making a point like, hey, you're losing weight, but you're also decreasing your risk of 200 plus diseases, 13 cancers that are associated with excess weight. So
Wow.
that's where I mentioned the whole holistic approach, because like you have to, try to integrate all those different portions as much as needed. And then if on top of the behavior, nutrition, exercise, you need the medication, then you need it.
Okay, so before we get there, there was a lot there. Let's backtrack a little bit. When you say, and I'm going to ask a very basic question, but I feel that sometimes we say these words and not everybody really understands them. So you were talking about red meat and decreasing, and then you said you have that as a treat, but then you do clean eating at home. What does clean eating actually mean and entail?
Right, that's a great point. And thanks for like sometimes we just say things and automatic.
We get excited.
uh, So yes, clean eating, basically no processed foods or as little as possible. And I would say even processed, using the word processed, like things that we have that may be on a healthier side, like still can be slightly processed, but ultra processed foods, like all those cookies, pre-packed meals, stuff like that. Those are anything with additives, anything with something that you don't know how to pronounce. Pretty much, those are ultra processed. So I don't have those. And then excluding that, but it's not just about excluding that, because then I could be having my sourdough bread, all day
Every
long for
day.
the rest of my days, and that doesn't mean that it's the healthiest either. But then eliminating that, but integrating the good stuff in my diet, and that's where the beans, the legumes come into play. Like the lentils, the chickpeas, all the different, red pinto, white beans, um, and so beans, legumes, all the vegetables. When people say like, it's not about having a salad with lettuce and tomatoes, I would be
Mm,
hungry 5 minutes after having that.
right.
But you can make a salad with those complex carbs, and by complex, those carbohydrates that are not processed. Let's say, the sweet potatoes, the quinoa, those are like the healthier carbs. You can put that into your salad. So pretty much that's what I mean by clean eating: fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, and the good fats. Like from avocado, olive oil. That's pretty much what I mean by the clean eating.
And that sounds so much more appealing than just eating lettuce. And not only is it appealing, but then it'll be filling, and we don't have to eat 5 minutes later or go to those cookies and, the processed foods, as you were saying.
Absolutely, absolutely, and
Yes.
having that, I don't want to say regimen, but eating at your times. Because like oftentimes we're just like skipping meals for the whole day, and then we're just like shaking, I'm starving, and you grab the first thing that's in front of you, and
Hmm.
99.9% is going to be something ultra processed.
Not great.
Right. So, having coming up with that plan. What am I going to be having for the week? I'm going to have those ingredients there. I'm going to pre-make whatever as much as possible. If I can make like a some salad, and by salad I mean, like, for example, a three bean salad, which is going to be,
Okay.
with chickpeas, string beans, pinto red beans, sorry, and other vegetables there, and that's going to be very filling. And it can stay there for the week. So, and
Right.
it's then fermented, which on top of being all those good foods, the process of fermentation gives it a plus. I always say, like, instead of getting pills of probiotics or pills with, multivitamins or vitamin C, why don't you have fermented foods? It's going to give your gut the good bacteria, and that's pretty much better, and not even the same, but better than those probiotic pills. Instead of getting
Mhm.
the vitamin C, have that fruit as a dessert, and you're getting the best source of vitamin C. So
Right.
that's my go to being as natural and as clean as possible.
And I appreciate that you're talking about this because when we go to the doctor, it's kind of like, all right, eat better. But really, so many of us don't really know what better is because we think, oh, less, right? But when we hear it broken down like this, it makes such a difference. And I'm assuming, and I know that when people work with you, that's exactly what they're getting. And then moving on to the holistic approach, what you were talking about, that it's not just what you're putting in your mouth, but you mentioned all these other things, which happen to overlap with my mindful living framework as far as, are you getting enough sleep? Are you resting? Are you moving your body? Are you doing that stress management and making sure that our bodies aren't always in that fight, flight, or freeze mode? Because that's when the cortisol go up, and then it really impacts, all your other hormones, and then how hungry you are, and how much your body stores fat. Right? Did I do a good job at explaining that?
I was just thinking that. I was like, hey, yeah, we should be, seeing patients together. That's pretty much the spiel, and the
I'm
breakdown of the
listening to you.
behavior.
You're sinking in. You're sinking in. So tell us
Love
more a
it.
little bit about that if we need to know any more specifics.
Right. Something I wanted to mention, going back to the eating, when it comes to, and that's my preference, right? One size does not fit all, and
Mm,
that's also part of what we do. Like, we start from what you're eating, what you like, what you don't like, and then go from there. Because I may be telling you the lentils, meanwhile you're like, ew, I don't like lentils.
ah,
But working with whatever you like, and going over those different things that are healthy that you're going to enjoy. So, and then from a scientific, point of view, when we talk about eat healthy, eat clean, there's studies of what diets, what dietary patterns are healthy for the long term, and improves our cardiovascular health. And so these, in a nutshell, would be like Mediterranean pattern, and this is pretty much where you're having, like, that's more the one I follow, like beans, legumes, olive oil, like the good fats, fatty fish. When having fish, meaning like salmon, tuna, mackerel, those are like the fattiest fishes. Lean meat, if you're going to have, like, some meat, some chicken breast, turkey breast, that would be the Mediterranean. And then, of course, fruits and vegetables. Then you have the vegetarian. And when patients tell me, yeah, I'm vegetarian, I'm like, okay, tell me what you mean by that. Because I can be eating French fries and Oreo cookies for the rest of my life, and that's
and be
vegetarian.
vegetarian. Yeah.
So it's not about that. So the vegetarian, vegan, and then the DASH diet, or dietary approach, for hypertension. But what they all have in common is that is the beans, legumes, fruits, vegetables, no processed foods. That's kind of like what they all have in common. So that's something I want to highlight. And those are diets that have been studied in thousands and thousands of people over time, and they've been proven to be beneficial for our health. Now, when it comes to the other aspects that you mentioned that we've been discussing, the movement, I never tell patients, like, get on a treadmill and
Mm.
walk 30 minutes a day. I cannot. I would go crazy unless I'm listening. It doesn't work for me. So tell me, what do you like to do? Oh, I don't do anything. So, okay, what do you think you would like? Whether it
Mhm.
is go for a walk, when you're taking your dog out, go for a longer walk, and then, hey, push yourself little by little, go at a faster pace. Or you don't want to go out, it's too hot, I had someone who loves still, of course, Beyonce. I'm like, okay, listen to Beyonce every night and dance to a couple of songs. And that was her go-to, that worked.
Right.
So it's whatever you like, and then getting to move whatever way it is. So that's when it comes to, the physical activity. It doesn't have to be, go to a gym, yeah, go for a walk. It may not be safe wherever that person lives
Right.
to go for a walk. So working with them at where they are. Now with the behavior, as you mentioned, and very well, like those stress hormones that release the cortisol that then affects other hormones. That's weight positive hormone. So it leads us to gain weight. And right, I'm stressed out. I'm a CEO of like a crazy corporation, or I have like 5 kids, and whatever reason you're stressed out, you're not gonna remove those stressors from your life.
Right.
Now let's see how we can get some, wusa time for yourself during that chaos. Because even taking those little pauses have an impact on your overall wellness. And it's not about, oh, I sit down and watch TV. When that's not, you're still like thinking, whatever. But
Hmm.
having some time for like relaxation, that's important. Sleep. And it's crazy how most of the adults right now, they don't sleep that much. Like they're
Not
like
at all.
5 to 6 hours. I'm like, I could not, think about that. But it affects, like I said, when you wake up after a bad night, sleeping, your body's already kind of like running on fumes. So it wants some
Mhm.
comfort, right? So what is that gonna look like? Your body's gonna
Coffee.
be, okay, you didn't give me some good sleep. Give me something that's gonna feel comforting. And usually when we have those carbs, like processed carbs, processed foods, it gives us like that rush of those
Right.
happy hormones of like dopamine,
For the
but
moment.
for the moment. And then it crashes. It's not sustainable, but it's not just that. It's not like a sustainable comfort. Soon after you have that, let's say, bagel, whatever, your body's going to release insulin. There comes
Right.
like the crazy hormones that your body's going to be, playing with. The insulin is going to make you hungry soon after because you process that carb right away. So those things about behavior are key. The stress eating, it's a lot of the it's something that most of the patients face nowadays in this stressful life. And then
Mhm.
the last and fourth point would be, as I mentioned, the medication.
Which we'll
uh,
get to in 1 second, because there were so many great things that you mentioned. And listeners, I don't know if you're like, oh, have you really been listening to your cousin, to Dr. De Jesus? Yes, I do. But I also know all these things because I've lived it, because I've yo-yoed from like 80 pounds one way and then losing and going back and forth. And I used to live that 4 hours of sleep, coffee and croissant life. And then it's like a never ending cycle. But when you change that, your body feels so much better, and you can actually function on a more optimal level, which is where we want to be, instead of this like go, go, go. And I love that you mentioned we're not getting rid of the job, right? We're not going to stop being CEOs. We're not going to just give our 5 kids away, or even if it's one kid or the one kid who has 4 paws. But what we want to do is learn to cope with that. And I'm going to do a little selfless plug here. That's why I'm really passionate about the 100 coping skills that you can find anywhere on my website, that are then supported by the following videos as to how to implement it for yourself as an adult, for your kids, and how to make it a long lasting, like sustainable, to use the word that you use, because we're not getting rid of those things, but we need to learn how to cope with it so that it doesn't impact our eating, and then doesn't impact our sleep, the way that we look and feel about ourselves, and then our overall functioning. So I love that you put all of this together. And then through your company, Metabolic, then not only putting this together, but then going into the medications, which you were just about to tell us more.
Right. Thank you. And I really love what you're doing. It's such a important pillar of, wellness and weight management, but again, overall wellness,
Right.
being able to address those things, recognize them, and be able to work and be healthier overall. Now, with the medications, I'm sure a lot of people have been bombarded with
Pop culture right
ads,
now.
pop culture. I'll start with saying that this is not just something that came up during pandemic.
Mm,
And by the medications, sure, we've been having medications for a long time, pills more in the form of pills like, the phentermine, the bupropion, Kisimia, Contrave, like, but those are pills. And while those were the best tools that we had at that time, the weight management was somewhat limited, at max 10%, but the side effects, with the phentermine, that's a stimulant. So difficulty sleeping. So it was very, impactful in people's quality of life in a fair amount of cases. Not everyone, of course. There's like a lot of success, but as I said, it was somewhat limited in the amount of weight and then the side effects that those medications had. We've been now having, again, since the mid 2000s, believe it or not, even though they came
okay.
up to the public eye in 2020, we've been having the GLP-1s. The first one that we had was Saxenda, and
Okay.
that was approved in the mid 2010s for weight management. But even before that, the way that they were discovered was that initially they were used for sugar control, for diabetes control,
Okay.
and the diabetes medication for the liraglutide, which is the same active component of Saxenda. That was in the market since the mid 2000s, and then mid 2010s we have Saxenda, great results, very, somewhat limited side effects, and the way that it's more, easier to tolerate, it's because those medications, they act on the GLP-1. That's a hormone that our body already produces. We have receptors for those hormones in different parts of our body, but primarily in our gut and our brain. And why those two places are important, and it's because we put the food in our mouth, it goes into our stomach, but it's the brain that then tells us like, "Hey, Sasha, you're full. Let's stop eating."
Got it.
But with all the, like overeating, and not just necessarily overeating, but even the fact of having uh, ultra processed foods over, the last couple decades, and
Right.
that's why we're seeing the rise of excess weight. That path, those signals are a little bit off because of that disruption in the way that we've been eating. So the medication, what it does is that it helps keep that hormone active. So when it goes into our gut, it tells your gut like, I'm full. And then at the brain level, it syncs that signal like I'm full. And then it does other ways. I'm not going to go too deep into the science behind it, but that's pretty much the two levels that it works. So we had first the Saxenda mid 2010s, and then uh, when everyone got super excited in 2020 with Elon Musk talking about
Right.
Wegovy. So this is better. They're all in the same family. It acts in the similar hormone with Wegovy as well as Saxenda. Just the difference is the way that peptide, that the medication is formed. Now with Wegovy, it lasts 1 week. So we have that in medication just administered once a week. While Saxenda, the older version, it had to be
Was
administered
daily.
once a day.
Okay.
Yes. So a lot of when that medication came out, I had that conversation with all the patients that I already had in Saxenda. Like, listen, we have this new medication. It's the same. It's just like a different formulation, a little tweak, so it lasts longer. Because that GLP-1, when it's produced by our own body, it just lasts a couple minutes after we eat. So pretty much
Okay.
food makes our body release that hormone, but just for like a couple minutes. And that's why sometimes we don't get, that signal very well, integrated without the medication. But now we have the Saxenda, made that hormone around us for 24 hours, and now we go before a full week.
Wow.
And then we, with time passing, we have better agents, and now we have two hormones being targeted besides GLP-1. There's another one, GIP, also released in our gut. It acts in a similar, axis, gut brain, but it gives us a little more weight loss.
Okay.
While with Wegovy, we would see, close to like 15-18% of weight loss. With Zepbound, which is the newer medication, we see about 20-22% on
Wow.
average weight loss. And these names may sound super like new to people because the way a lot of people have been seeing it is by their formulation for diabetes. Ozempic
Hmm.
is Wegovy. So they're produced by the same pharmaceutical. It's just a different label. So
Okay.
Ozempic for diabetes, Wegovy for weight management, and the active ingredient for those two is semaglutide, which is
The same.
what a lot of people are seeing on ads on social media and whatnot. And I'll get into that in 1 second because we have to be mindful of those, you know, shops or whatever, med spas. And then the other one that we have, the Zepbound, is the same as Mounjaro. A lot
Okay.
of people may hear it that way. And then Mounjaro is the diabetes formulation. Zepbound is for weight management. And the active ingredient for those two is tirzepatide. And just trying to keep it as simple as possible, we talk about those main two medications we have. And my main tip would be to avoid the compounded or the generic, oh, this place is selling me the semaglutide, or this
Because it's
place is selling
cheaper.
me the tirzepatide. It's cheaper. You'll get those ads like get semaglutide for $100 a month, and then you're like,
Mm,
yeah. Then Ozempic is like 800, and Wegovy, they lower the price now, so it's like 650, but still 100
it's a lot,
650.
right?
You see a big difference. But one, it's a catch because then the next month they're like, oh yeah, the dose is higher, so we're eventually you end up paying the same that you would get for the brand. um,
Okay.
so that's one. And then two, contrary to when you go to the pharmacy and you buy Aleve or naproxen, Aleve being the brand, naproxen being the generic, or Advil and
Got it.
ibuprofen,
Uh-huh.
they right now we don't have the formula, to put it that way, of semaglutide and tirzepatide. The
Okay.
pharmaceutical, it's a business. They put a
Of
lot
course.
of millions of dollars into studying those medications before they release it to the public. So they get to keep the formula. They get to keep the patent. So whatever they're selling you out there, oh, it's the same
It's
semaglutide
not
of
the
Wegovy.
same.
It's not. And
Mm.
it's really sad. Like I posted something on my TikTok about that, how I get so many compounding pharmacies tell me like, hey, this is 98% pure. And I'm like, I don't want 98% for my patients. I want 100%. That's why I'm doing the brand. I'm not doing this.
So that 2% is going to make not a good difference.
Yes, and they're like cases of infection, like no
Wow.
results, really bad side effects. I'm like, yeah, I cannot speak to what's there. I can tell you like all the side effects and what to expect, how to avoid from the brand.
Mm.
And full disclosure, I tell my patients, I don't make a dime from, recommending the brand. I would be making
Okay.
money if I sell the compounded, but that's
Right.
not a buck that I want to make. So it's not like I'm getting, I'm on their big pharma's pocket or anything. It's like
Okay.
safety is always first, and I would not trade that for money. So
Right.
that's my
Oh my
tip. Like,
goodness.
yes, it's really scary, and they sell it in such a way like it's the same, just as no, it's not.
Right, right. And where everybody, I feel like in our culture, especially now, it's all about like, well, I want to like keep up with the Joneses, and like I want to look good, I want to feel good, so I'm gonna spend less hoping to get the same results, but it's not gonna be the same, one, getting a cheaper product, but two, without working with a team of people that are going to help, not just with it's not a magic pill, right? It's not a magic whatever. It's that whole other piece, because if not, you just gain the weight back and then your time and money went right out the window. And I wanted to, like, when you're talking, I see pictures in my head, right? So the picture that I put in my head is almost the food is coming in, and then you're stressed, you're tired, you're not sleeping, all of these things. It almost forms like a traffic jam in your body. But then with all of this help, it's kind of like your brain is like, wait, no, we're full. It gets that clear direction, like the air traffic control of where to go. So then the traffic jam is released, and then things can function better with the brain and the gut working together. Does that make sense for you? Because that's how I saw it in my head.
It's perfect. It's very. I'm actually going to clip that part and use that as well. It's exactly how it works, and absolutely well said. And it's really funny because I don't know if you've heard the term food noise, kind of like I'm hungry. What am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? What's going to be the next
Oh,
meal? like that thing, I tell a lot of my patients who struggle with like, stress eating and eating pretty much throughout the day, or not necessarily like eating like a big, but snacking here and there.
Uh-huh.
When I meet with them, and that's another reason why it's important to meet with someone who understands and gives you the right counseling. One, so that you get the right medication, but also the right counseling, which is going to be key in order to, have like sustainable changes, but also to avoid side effects.
Mm,
But I tell them in advance, like, listen, the way the medication works is this and that way, and you're gonna feel this food noise going down, and you can see how they look at me like, and one or two here and then they would say like, I don't think that's a thing, and now I get ahead of myself and I'm like, I know you're thinking I'm crazy and I'm lying to you. I'm not, because you're gonna tell me in a couple of weeks like, oh my god, because that's what happens pretty
you
much.
just don't
Every
feel
patient
hungry
tells
anymore,
you don't feel, but then I tell them like, listen, you're not gonna have that food noise.
but you
You're
have
not
to
gonna
eat.
have this reminder, but you gotta eat.
Right.
And it may sound like counterintuitive, like, but it's not about depriving your body of nutrients. It's using this, traffic control, as you said, to, okay, take a step back and like, hey, I need to eat. I'm not starving, so I'm not going to have the chips. Let's use this time that I'm not like shaking because I'm hungry to get something
Right. Make
healthier,
a better choice.
make a better choice. Absolutely. So it doesn't get old, like that the face of my patients when they're like, that I'm not going to be hungry. I don't think I'm going to need to, that I'm going to forget to eat. And I'm like, okay, well, just mark my words, we'll talk in a couple weeks. And then there they
That's
are,
what
and I'm like, oh,
happens.
that's what happens. I'm like, okay, now put an alarm so you remember when to eat, because I'm like, okay, that works.
It's amazing to have all the education behind it in a way that's understandable, because I think that with the processed food that probably has society gaining so much weight. But then when you know the education behind it, then hopefully once you implement it, you can start, making better choices. And it's that implementation part that I really tie into mindful living, because you want to be intentional about your choices. You don't want to run on autopilot, because that's when, like you said, you start shaking, you start, just grabbing the first thing that you see, which tends to be those complex carbs, as opposed to making better and better choices. And that helps with overall wellness, not just the one thing, but everything: mental health, physical health, emotional, social health, everything.
Absolutely. And just a little parentheses, you mentioned that we grab the complex carbs. The complex carbs are the
Well,
good friends, our friends.
the
The
simple
simple
carbs.
carbs.
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. The simple carbs.
But
I'm still learning, people.
everything else is absolutely correct. So yes, it's about making implementing those things that you've learned. And again, it's all about long-term health. And I tell my patients, I'm not doing you any favor if I'm pushing you to lose weight in an unhealthy way, if I'm not making
Mhm.
sure that you preserve your muscles. And that's something all of our patients here at Metabolic, they all get a body composition scale, so that it's like your regular scale. It just transmit that data into our app so we can monitor how much muscle mass you're losing, how much fat you're losing. Because I don't want you to just lose 10 pounds from whatever. I want those 10 pounds to
That.
come more from your fat than your muscles. Why? Because like muscles, those are what uses most energy in our body. And that's what's going to keep our metabolism in a good place.
Right.
So that's why those yo-yo diets are horrible, especially when you're doing those crash diets where you lose 15 pounds. And great, you lose it, but you lose it in
From
a
where?
way that it's not sustainable. You're doing like, some very restricted diet. And then you gain those 15 pounds and you find yourself like, now when I want to diet again and lose 15 again, it's not as easy as it was before.
Right.
Why? Because when you lost that initial 15 pounds, it was probably 50-50, whatever percentage, but a good amount of muscle. So now your metabolism, and then when you gain it back, you were probably not lifting weights or, gaining muscle mass, you gain
You gain
fat.
fat.
And then now your metabolism is slowing down as we continue doing those yo-yo diets. So I keep
Oh my
telling patients, I'm
goodness.
not doing you any favor having you drop X amount of weight if it's at expense of your muscles. So we want to keep those muscles in a good percentage. So and it all varies, by gender and age. So in the long term, you're going to be a healthy older person who's not going to be frail, falling
Mm,
at 70 and breaking your hip, and quality of life goes down to the sink. So it's all thinking about the big picture, not just
Right.
about
The
losing
right
weight
now.
for the summer body and call it a day.
So you told us a little bit about that. And if you can quickly fill in the gaps, when people work with you at Metabolic, you said that they get a scale, you're looking at what they're eating, and then all the other pieces that we mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. So our services, we see patients in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. It's all telehealth, and the way that we have, a good approach for our patients for weight management remotely is that, of course, with a face to face, we see for like certain physical things that I don't need to like touch you, but like see, like face features or ask you some questions.
Okay.
But the other way that we monitor patients is with that scale. Everyone gets that scale and access to our app. So the data from the scale, it transmits there, and I can see it in real time on my end right away.
Okay.
So everyone gets that scale. They get a thorough evaluation with a lot of questions for the first visit with me, and then monthly follow-ups before we make any adjustments on the medications. Everyone we have they have to follow up so we can titrate medications accordingly, go over any side effects. Of course, if anything's needed between visits, they all can communicate with us through the
Okay.
app. And then they also get to see and work with a health coach, integrative nutritional health coach, every other week for the period
Awesome.
of their membership. And I say membership because it's we have different 3, 6, 12 months plans. So they can see that those different plans in our website at metabolichealth.com. And metabolic, it's with a K, not a C at the end. So metabolic health.
Awesome branding. Going to be my next question. Where can people find you? So metabolic with a K, metabolichealth.com, and then your social media that you put so many great things out there.
Right, thank you. And Instagram at Metabolic Health and Sasha DJBD De Jesus and B as in boy. And I'd like to offer a discount code for all of your amazing people, your amazing community. So for anyone who's signing up for the 1 year membership, you can use the discount code free to be for 15% off of the 1 year membership. And for the 6 months membership, can use the same code free to be for 10% off.
Ooh, thank you for thinking about us. That's really, really appreciated. And again, that code is free to be, and we will put it in the show notes. And Sasha, before you go today, if you could be remembered for one thing in life, what would that one thing be?
Live a healthy, happy life. Live a happy life that it's healthy and brings you joy, and everything else is going to follow.
I love that. And I love how on your social media, we see that. We see you living a happy and a healthy life. So, my friends, I really encourage you to visit her on social media, to check out the website. And if this is something that you feel works for you, definitely get on a free call. You give the free consultations, correct, before they can go anywhere. And if it's not for you, please share it with a friend, whether it be the whole podcast or just metabolic health. Please share it with friends because this is just wonderful information that we don't want to keep to ourselves, but it is nice to share good things with others as well. So, Dr. Sasha Prima, cousin, all the things. Thank you, thank you, thank you for spending some time with us this morning. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to finally be here on your podcast. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll see you soon, Prima.
Thank you, Sasha, once again. And I really love the practicality and the education piece of it all so that we can make better choices in our lives. For today's guided meditation, I want you to think about when you do come to a meal, when you do see a plate of dinner, let's say, are you taking in the colors? Are you taking in the smells? Are you taking in the texture of the plate? More often than not, we don't do that because we tend to not have the time and just go through our meals quickly. But really engage in mindful eating at least one meal of the day when you have a little bit more time and see the colors, how the food is touching one another, if you're comfortable with that, the textures of everything, and the smells. Even before you put a spoonful in your mouth, see how it feels before you even consume it, and then how you feel after the fact. It may make your meal a little longer, but I guarantee that you will feel fuller and you will feel happier with what you're eating and actually realize what it is that you're consuming as opposed to rushing right by it, because we have the right to enjoy our meals as well. My friends, as always, thank you for listening. And remember that in a world where you are free to be anything that you want to be, you are always free to be mindful. Catch you next week. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. It would mean a ton if you took this moment to review the Free to Be Mindful podcast on the platform you catch your favorite shows. That quick and easy act lets me know what you enjoy, and it helps others find the podcast too. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you can listen along next week. In the meantime, I welcome you to catch me on social media at Counselor V De Jesus. And as always, remember, in a world where you are free to be anything that you want to be, you are always free to be mindful. Catch you next week.